Hello people of the internet, it's Amanda, and if you're new here on my channel, I usually talk about Japanese movies, dramas, entertainment. Sometimes I tap into other Asian pop culture topics as well, and one of the things that I usually get asked whenever I talk about dramas or movies is, where can I watch this? So that's the reason why I said in my previous videos that I'll try as much as possible to talk about titles that are easily available in streaming platforms, especially if they're available outside of Japan. And that's what we're doing today with today's film, Drawing Closer. Now, Drawing Closer is produced by Netflix, and I believe that it's available in a lot of different territories where the platform is available in, and it stars Kimpuri's Nagase Ren, who he co-stars with Deguchi Natsuki in this film. It's a romance drama, and the vibe is very similar to a lot of films and live action adaptations. Some of the titles include Your Lie in April, I Want to Eat Your Pancreas, Even If This Love Disappears from the World Tonight. That entire genre. This is something that is very familiar, not just to Japanese movie lovers, but also just if you love Asian dramas or Asian movies. This type of storytelling is very, very similar, where one or both the leads have only a couple of months or years to live, etc., and they meet and all these other things. But I also have some thoughts about that particular storytelling and narrative, and I'll be discussing that later into the video, as well as like how this film is differentiated from the other titles that I also just mentioned. And yeah, now with that said, so let's just get to it. As I mentioned, so I think I've reviewed a couple of Ren's other films and dramas here on my channel before, because as I mentioned, I'm a fan of Kimpuri, so obviously the acting projects of the members, both former and current, I usually make it a point to check them out, and some of them I've made videos for. Now, for Drawing Closer, the Japanese title for this one is Yome Ichinen no Boku ga Yome Hantashi no Kimi to Deyatta Hanashi, or Yome Boku. But we're just gonna stick with the English title because that's how it's being promoted by Netflix in different territories. So, Drawing Closer. The person behind this film is Takahiro Miki, who is known for his works Even If This Love Disappears from the World Tonight, as I mentioned earlier, Your Eyes Tell, which is a Japanese version of Always. His other notable titles include Sensei or My Teacher, starring Ikuta Toma and Hirose Suzu, Aoharu Ride, and Bokura ga Ita, both the 1 and 2 versions of that. I think that's, if I remember correctly, Bokura ga Ita, I love the anime of, or the manga of that, and I found out that Toma was playing the lead. That's why I watched it. But yeah, so I'm pretty much familiar with the storytelling or just the directorial vibe of Takahiro Miki, and so I wasn't surprised that I was gonna like the directorial style for Drawing Closer. Now, the premise of the film is basically, so Ren plays the character Akito, and he's a talented artist. He wants to be accepted in this exhibition and all these other things, but he was diagnosed with a tumor to his heart and therefore was told that he only has a year to live. Now, while he was grappling with that diagnosis, he encounters Haruna, and she's also an artist, but when he talks to her, he finds out that she only has 6 months to live, or that she's also grappling with a serious illness. And so he decides to withhold his condition from her. And they just decide to be friends. So Haruna is completely oblivious of Akito's condition, and Akito also kept his condition from Haruna because he just wants to be a normal friend to her. He visits her every single day, and they kind of like are finding hope in each other. Akito slowly tries to explore Haruna's wants, dreams, all these other things, and one of the things that he finds out is that she used to be friends with a girl called Miura Ayaka, who is his batchmate in school, played by Yoko Tamayu. And they kind of like fell apart for certain reasons. But he helps in reconciling both of them, and they become this kind of like trio. They become this like really good friends, all three of them. But obviously with Akito's condition, there are a lot of complications, and obviously still trying to keep it as a secret from Haruna, all these other things. And like they bond over their love of art, but at the same time they also just bond about this idea of, you know, young romance, of friendship. Haruna also got the impression that Akito is in love with one of his other friends. So it's kind of like she feels this unrequited love or crush towards him without really knowing that he was actually in love with her. The movie also incorporates the idea of flowers, or the language of flowers, which is very familiar when it comes to, you know, how it is when you want to tell something to someone without necessarily being too bold for it. So they use the symbolism of gerbera flowers or daisies for this, the colors, the numbers, or just the idea of the flower itself and what it speaks for. And it plays a huge role in the way that the characters are also subtly talking to each other without necessarily saying things. So I absolutely love that. And again, it's about these three artistic people and how they're navigating this thing called friendship and love while having these circumstances that is inevitable. Now, as compared to like the other films that I mentioned earlier, like Your Lie in April or I Want to Eat Your Pancreas, because the initial catch of the film already gives us the circumstances of both the leads. Like they're both, they both have a limited time to live and they've been diagnosed as such. And therefore, it's not what is used as a plot twist in the film as compared to, again, as I mentioned, Your Lie in April, I Want to Eat Your Pancreas, and all these things. Now, that in itself, you know, kind of like differentiates it from it, but the premise still remains pretty much the same, where we see these young people trying to navigate through romance and love and all these other things, and just love and just the normalcy of how young love is like, even with the conditions that they're presented in. And what I like about these films, which again might be up for discussion for other people or all these other things, but the treatment has always been, and this is prominent with a lot of like not just Japanese films but Asian films, in the way that they handle these types of narratives. It's not really a romanticization of a certain illness, but rather it's a celebration of life, love, friendship, and most importantly highlighting discussions of grief, which I think is very important. Like sometimes, especially in Western iterations of these types of narratives, it always almost comes off as selfish. Like people aren't understanding what the other people around them are feeling, and therefore they're entitled to this, that, and there. But for some reason, Asian films always are able to capture not just the emotions of the people who are actually sick in themselves, but also the people around them, and the kind of like what influences their reactions towards the situation that they're all in, which I really, really love. And again, for this one, it's not a story about just people finding hope in each other in kind of like this manic pixie manner. But it's actually trying to learn to live for another person or find hope in another person, even if in such a dire situation. It's putting, it's creating this kind of, or seeing this kind of like rawness to it that isn't necessarily, again, romanticizing that entire thing, but allowing you to come into terms with the situation. And again, most importantly for me is the way that these narratives are handling grief, in a sense that just because you are moving on with your life after the passing of someone you love, or while you're dealing with a situation of them eventually leaving, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad thing. It's not something that means that you're forgetting them. And it's the same with them as well. It's allowing these people, which I think again is part of the appeal of these films, is it gives us hopefulness that not a lot of people are allowed to have, like this closure of someone leaving a letter behind. So even if they're away, you still kind of like have access to their thoughts prior to them leaving, which again is the appeal of these films is because it's wishful and hopeful for even us who have experienced grief before, or who are in fear of these types of things about the inevitability of mortality, and allowing us to have these moments of being able to have this shared moment with the person who's already passed. And I think these types of films capture that in a way that makes it very heartfelt to the audiences. I think Drawing Closer is a good example of that. Again, in all three characters with Haruna, Akito, and even Ayaka, I would say that the ending, especially for Ayaka, is something that tugged on my heartstrings a lot more than whatever happened between Akito and Haruna. Now, more on the technical side of things. So again, as I mentioned, I've always loved Takahiro Miki's directorial style. So I love how, I love how the whimsicality of some of the scenes kind of like manifest the emotions and the feelings of the characters as they are feeling it through, that particular moment. Again, I love it whenever a film uses something that you can always go back to when it comes to metaphors and symbolisms, and in this form it's the art, at the same time the gerbera flowers for Akito, Haruna, and even Ayaka. I love that it's centered on all three people who are very creative, very artistic, but it's not just that aspect of their personality that is being highlighted. Like, it's just something that helped them connect a little bit more easy. And another thing that I like about this film is I've seen Ren in other acting projects before, and I think I've talked about this here on my channel as well as on Twitter. I'm not exactly like the biggest fan of his acting prior. I did think that he definitely has a lot more room to improve on, but so far with all the different projects that he's slowly taking up, he's definitely improving a lot as an artist, which I think is really amazing. It's funny because prior to me seeing Drawing Closer, I've seen Tokyo Tower, which is this recent drama, and that one is a little bit more spicy. It's an adaptation of like a previous film, which is also again spicy in nature. And it's quite interesting to see Ren play that part versus here, where he's a high school student falling in love for the first time and navigating romance. It's just like two different sides, and I absolutely love that he's exploring that. I do think that, again, as with any of my favorites, I do think that there's still definitely a lot of room to improve on. And I think that's a good thing. That's a good sign when it comes to, like, no one is completely flawless when it comes to their performances just yet, especially at this stage in their career. There's still a lot of roles to explore, a lot of projects to take on. I'm just really happy that Ren is able to participate in this kind of drama movie, I'd say. And even the cast like complements a lot really nicely. And again, I love seeing that improvement in Ren's acting as well, not just in this one but in Tokyo Tower. Though I'm not sure if I want to make a video specifically for Tokyo Tower. I might change my mind on that, so whatever. But overall, I absolutely enjoy this film. It's not exactly the easiest watch because, as I mentioned, the theme is very similar to films like Your Lie in April, I Want to Eat Your Pancreas, but it centers on, a bittersweet ending for all of the parties involved, not just the two leads. But if you like these types of films, I think that you're absolutely gonna love Drawing Closer as well. It's up to the audience to decide whether or not this is a happy ending, because to me, part of it is, and again, it's a bittersweet ending in my opinion, but I've seen some people say that this has a happier ending that they would have expected. Some people are saying that it's still sad. I personally don't cry when it comes to these types of films, simply because, again, to me, rather than focusing on the lonely parts of it, I see it as the way that they're narrating the idea of love, of life, of friendship, and most importantly, the way that they're comforting people with the idea that this is what grief is like, and it's not something that really leaves you. And I love that as someone who personally emotionally struggles with grief myself. So it's something that I personally feel close to home whenever these types of topics come into play. But overall, like, I recommend this film. It's on Netflix. If you're looking for something to watch, go check it out. And maybe let's talk out your thoughts down in the comments below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new to my channel and you would want to hear more from me, please hit subscribe. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you again soon in a new one. Bye!